Good evening. I'm Cherry Jones. Tonight, we celebrate a man who has cheered and encouraged so many others. From the back rows of theaters, in university classrooms, in countless conference rooms, restaurants and coffee shops, and in the halls and offices of Manhattan Theater Club, where he's been a guiding force since 1975. Tonight, we celebrate a true champion of the arts, a theater lover, a theater leader, a mentor, a teacher, a colleague, a friend. Tonight, we honor Barry Grove, who this month is celebrating his 40th anniversary at MTC. But first, some backstory. Barry was born and grew up in Madison, Connecticut, coincidentally less than 20 miles from where Lynne Meadow was busy growing up, too. This small-town New England boy was an Eagle Scout, president of his class and student government, and everyone's date for prom. His father loved sports and the great outdoors. His mother loved theater and opera, and she took Barry and his sister every chance she got. When his mother passed away, Barry's Aunt Dorothy took over. But it wasn't until Barry arrived at Dartmouth College that his own love of theater really took hold. Barry acted, and acted some more, and some more. Then a flyer on the bulletin board of the Dartmouth Drama Department changed his life. In 1970, at age 19 and a sophomore, he applied for a semester of training at the National Theater Institute at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center. He soon found himself in classes taught by some of the theater's greatest talents, including Lloyd Richards, Jim Henson, Hal Prince, and Jay Ranelli, and designers David Hayes and Fred Vopel. His passion grew, and the seeds were planted about the incredible value of teaching, something Barry would do for others years later. It was also during his time at the O'Neill that Barry met Maggie, the love of his life, the woman who would become his wife. This fall, they will celebrate 42 years of marriage. Barry spent the winter of 1971 assisting Melvin Bernhardt on the Broadway production of Paul Zendel's And Miss Reardon Drinks a Little, starring Julie Harris and Estelle Parsons. College continued, and during breaks, Barry worked in summer stock, on Broadway tours, at regional theaters, and at the home of the world's biggest plowing contest, Farm Fest USA. Then, after graduating and settling into his first job as general manager of the new repertory project at the University of Rhode Island, New York came calling.
I will never forget the day I met Barry Grove. So Barry came to meet me one day in June of 1974, and I was in a state of crisis, something that I have probably been in for the last 43 years, but we were doing a show and had lost an actor, and I was very busy trying to find an actor to go on that night to replace the actor who was sick. Barry came on that day, and he had to wait and wait for his appointment because I was making phone calls. He arrived in my office, and I said to him, Barry, I don't have the mental space to talk to you. We're in a huge casting crisis. I just can't talk to you today. And he said words I will never forget. He said, Lynn, I get it. And he has gotten it for the last 40 years.
Their first collaboration together was an off-Broadway production of Golden Boy that starred Jerry Zaks. The run was 12 performances. The ticket price was $2.50.
I remember vividly the first time I met Barry because Lynn brought him into the theater where we were working. And this sort of very pleasant, preppy guy from Dartmouth showed up, and I'm thinking, I don't know if this is going to work. And we were in the world of creaky floors and creaky doors and roaches and low budgets and scratched desks and a faulty phone system. And little by little, problems were addressed, and Barry stayed.
From the very start, Barry saw that something big was happening on stage, that more people deserved the opportunity to see these new plays that Lynne was fostering, that audiences wanted to embrace what was happening in this bubbling creative hub that was taking hold on the Upper East Side. But how to do this? At their theatrical home on East 73rd Street, Barry and Lynne continued to produce as Manhattan Theater Club continued to expand. Soon, the ticket price was $4. But for Barry, even early on, it was all about building a bigger audience for their theatrical productions, working with the unions to let shows have longer runs, gaining a broader visibility for this vital institution that was becoming a major force in the city.
I remember him talking about going to Equity and saying, we're going to pay our actors, right? We're going to move beyond a showcase code, but I have to have a typewriter first. Because if I have a typewriter, then I can do some grant applications, and then I can raise some money. And if I can do that, then I can pay the actors. And that's going to take a year or two.
At that point, Manhattan Theater Club had a budget of $212,000. There were 7 staff members, in addition to Lynne and Barry. And when you think that today there are, 20,000 subscribers and a budget that's approaching $30 million, I mean, the growth is phenomenal under their leadership.
From early on, many shows Lynne created for MTC's small theaters became commercial productions and transferred to other theaters. In 1977, she asked Richard Maltby to direct a musical based on the works of Fats Waller in MTC's 65-seat cabaret. Ain't Misbehavin' blew the roof off the joint and transferred to Broadway. After that first transfer, many others followed. Ashes, Mass Appeal, Crimes of the Heart, which won the Pulitzer Prize. To Barry, it became clear that MTC could and should be producing all of its work in larger venues. So when MTC lost its lease on 73rd Street, it became essential to realize Barry's dream and vision for expansion.
I think that the search for City Center grew out of Barry's awareness, the board's awareness, Lynne's awareness that we were going to need a bigger space. So it was tricky, and it was a tough search. And I think Barry actually mentioned it to Jerry Schoenfeld, to the Schuberts. And they remembered that there was a basement space at City Center that hadn't been used in a really long time.
Barry's talent has always been about doing a great many things at once, about galvanizing the theater's board and recruiting great leaders, about reaching out to donors, about generating support, about building relationships within the community. With Barry and Lynne at the helm, MTC got its first Ford Foundation grant, a multi-year gift that ensured this growing theatrical institution would be around for more than the next season. A challenge grant from the National Endowment for the Arts followed, along with many more. And fundraising galas starring big Broadway talent helped grow the donor base. Barry and his team worked tirelessly to secure grants like ones from the Wallace Foundation to extend the off-Broadway lives and transfers of plays including Sight Unseen, 4 Dogs and a Bone, Sylvia, and Lips Together, Teeth Apart. By the early 90s, Lynne had established strong relationships with major playwrights like Terrence McNally, Alan Ayckbourn, Donald Margulies, and Richard Greenberg, relationships that continue to this day. In 1992, before MTC had a Broadway house, Lynne wanted to direct Alan Ayckbourn's new play, A Small Family Business, to open directly on Broadway. Barry led the board to create and implement a for-profit subsidiary to make that happen. Then, after 20 years of producing and a 20-minute meeting with Rocco Landesman, the money was raised for the Broadway transfer of McNally's Love, Valor, Compassion under the newly created Broadway Alliance. It went on to win the Tony Award and was the first Alliance show to recoup its investment. By 2000, there were 3 Manhattan Theater Club productions running on Broadway, produced by MTC with Barry leading a team of veteran commercial producing partners. Proof won the Tony for Best Play and the Pulitzer Prize and ran for 917 performances.
When Proof happened, or even really before Proof happened, both Barry and Lynne came and said, We would like this to be a home. We'd like you to come to us with whatever you have. It doesn't have to be like Proof. In fact, if it's different, that's better, you know. And that turned out to really be true. You know, that wasn't just sort of producer hype. And I've subsequently brought all of my plays here, and they've all been different, and they've worked different ways, and they've been on different stages, and you know, we've had, and each one has been a wonderful experience. The morning after the opening, if the reviews are great, you get a call from Barry saying, "We are really proud of this show. We are going to do absolutely everything we can to support it." And if the reviews aren't great, you get a call from Barry saying, "We are really proud of this show. We're going to do everything we can to support it."
A class act was running just down the street. And the tale of the Allergist's wife ran for 777 performances, becoming the longest-running comedy in 20 years and launching a major national tour.
Barry Grove is one of the dearest human beings in the world. Forget show business. He was smart and kind and dear and funny. And he always looked, when you see him, he's about to tell you a good joke, a good one, the one that you'll really laugh at. He came out on the road to see us, to check us out, but it was more than that. It was to make sure the show was delivering to those folks in Cincinnati or Columbus or wherever we work. It was a year-long tour, and it was fabulous. But he was always there, and that is unusual. I love Barry Grove. I love him. He's wonderful.
As Manhattan Theater Club continued to increase its presence, Barry also sensed that it was outgrowing its capacity at City Center and needed an even bigger stage as an addition. He spent 10 years searching for the company's Broadway home.
One night, I actually went to see the Iceman Cometh across the street at Brooks Atkinson. And very long show. Second intermission, I went out for a breath of fresh air, standing out on the sidewalk, looking across the street. I looked at this dilapidated theater, and I thought, why wouldn't that be perfect for them? The location's fantastic, but it was a true wreck. It looked like a demolition site. So working with Barry was first of all, it was great. And he is an extremely detailed, hands-on guy. At least that's our experience with him. And you know, when we were working on the project, we actually referred to this theater as Barry's house, because he brought like a homeowner's level of attention to everything that we did in the theater, which was great because, you know, he was genuinely appreciative of the input and the things that we would suggest. With Barry, it was great because he got so into it.
When MTC acquired the Biltmore, they had to negotiate with all of the back-of-house locals, meaning the stagehands, wardrobe, hair and makeup, ushers, box office. And the way it was lined up is that we couldn't reach agreement with any one of them until we had reached agreement with all of them. So we had these marathon negotiations, just going from one to the other. Barry keeping all of this in his mind and separated when he needed to and together for comparison purposes when he needed to. It was a remarkable feat, and that was exciting. And Barry led MTC through that thicket.
The Biltmore, which would later be renamed the Samuel J. Friedman Theater, thanks to a generous gift from the Friedman Family Foundation, was reopened in October 2003 after a major recreation. Barry not only oversaw the renovation, but together with Peter Solomon and David Hodgson and a host of other generous board members and donors, including the City of New York, raised $35 million to bring that theater back to life at a critical time in our city's history.
And the interesting thing about this project here at the Biltmore, and one of the most significant things about it at the time, was it was, I believe, the first cultural project, construction project, to go ahead after 9/11.
By now, MTC was really off and running, on a bigger scale than anyone could ever have imagined.
We, I think, came in with this idea of I Want My MTC, which was a play on I Want My MTV. The core of the idea was, and I think Barry really brought to us the idea that you guys have had so many artists working with you that are treasured by everyone on Broadway. And Barry really had said, this is a real asset that we have. Can we use them in any way? And we all realized that that campaign was a great way to have artists lend their credibility to say, this is a perfect thing for shows. If you love the theater, you'll love what's happening here with the 3 stages.
Not long after that, Barry again, with a team of commercial partners, brought John Patrick Shanley's Doubt to Broadway. The play not only won the Tony and Pulitzer Prize, but I was honored to receive the Tony for Best Actress and Doug Hughes the Tony for Best Director. It's one of my cherished theatrical associations I've had with MTC, going back to Christopher Hampton's The Philanthropist in that intimate, both onstage and off, very creaky, beloved theater on East 73rd Street. All along the way, Barry and his team worked hard to raise money to support MTC's educational efforts. Getting students in to see shows, to experience the thrill of live theater, to talk about it and learn from it, and to take it with them for the rest of their lives. And he was teaching at major educational institutions like Columbia and Yale. His students went on to become MTC interns, staff members, and the next generation of theater managers all around the country.
For many years, Barry has been teaching a play production course at Columbia University. And courses like this are incredibly important to young people coming up. He puts teams of students together. As a team, they make presentations at the end of their term to various professionals who cut across all aspects of this business. We get to respond to what these young people have put together under Barry's supervision. When you participate on those graduating committees in his play production course, you get to see how Barry is completely supportive of those students and really wishing them well and nurturing them and then getting ready to push them out into the real world. He maintains a great spirit.
From the beginning, Barry not only embraced wholeheartedly Lynne's mission to support writers and do new work, but he created the infrastructure and found the audience and triumphed over the many enormous challenges to sustain and grow what has become a major American theater. For Barry Grove, it's all about seeing the enormity of the art's ability to change lives. It's about seeing an inner-city kid experience the theater for the first time. It's about cheering as an MTC playwright receives the Pulitzer Prize. It's about standing on stage next to Lynne more than once to receive the Tony Award for Best Play. It's about his extraordinary dedication, his commitment, and his enormous success in a glorious career in the theater.
No one has the kind of energy that Barry Grove has. I don't know where he gets it. He's working a full day at MTC. He's very present, and yet he's off seeing a play. He's a Tony voter. He's on the Tony Administration Committee. He's attending league meetings. He's very active in LORT, League of Resident Theaters. Barry is just someone who he loves, loves, loves theater, and he has really committed himself to the entire industry.
Barry has this enormous respect for artists and the artfulness of the work, and then he grounds it every time back to, yes, but how do we communicate that in such a way that someone wants to buy a ticket?
And I think Barry's been one of the real leaders in shaping over these 40 years what not-for-profit management is.
To me, the fact that the Manhattan Theater Club has survived and prospered for so long, it's a remarkable theater story.
Any tribute to Barry should include some mention of the fact that it's a bit spooky that he doesn't appear to be aging.
He's a citizen of the world, and I think that's really important to understand. Barry cares pretty deeply about the kind of fundamental, old-fashioned values that are important to care about.
The fact of the matter is, Barry Grove is an organizational genius. He could land a man on the moon, he could conduct military actions, he could set up a World's Fair, but the reality of him is he loves the theater. And aren't we lucky that he gets it and that he loves the theater so much that he's brought all that talent and all that genius to making Manhattan Theater Club the amazing institution that it is today.
Tonight, we celebrate Barry Grove. He's an industry player, sure. He's a beloved Broadway figure. He's a theater icon who has championed countless others. But above all, he's a great guy. Here's to Barry Grove on 40 simply fabulous years at Manhattan Theater Club, and many more to come. Bravo indeed.